These were about, these ones here,
Yes.
they're about character. They're not sexy, they're not fast, they're not sexy, they're not heavily armed, but they had tremendous character as a model. Something that I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so I asked MTB Hulls in Gibraltar if this could be done. And so it was. He made it in various scales. This is the smallest one.
Right.
I like 72nd because it relates to the other models that I have. But there's just something about this that I'd always wanted to build, just a certain look to it.
Okay.
It's got a clutter, it's got a character. Yeah.
So this is Tristan Bruton. I'm just talking with Geoff Eastwood at the Shipwright show in the ACT in 2023. And yeah, very nice to meet you, Geoff. How you going, mate?
You.
Yeah. So all of these you've actually had a hand in putting together.
Yes.
And it'd be great to get your thoughts on each of these kits and some of the effort that's been put into bringing them alive. But this one you're just talking about now, so this very first one, HMS Nation, and beautiful looking
almost
example.
An unfeasibly small model, but that's half the fun of it. That's much easier nowadays because you can buy small components, which with miniaturisation makes a lot of these things possible. Say 20 years ago, you couldn't have built that as a working model.
Yeah. Did you have much trouble with it? Was it a...
Yes.
Okay, yeah, right, yeah. So was it, you built that scratch, it's scratch built, does it come as a kit and then you scratch build, or do you have plans?
It came simply as a whole.
Right.
Which I commissioned from someone else. They built that. The rest of it I built from plans that had been acquired from various places. It wasn't an actual model maker's plan, but plans become available over the years from various people. This was from a sister ship. They're almost the same, so you just vary it where you know there's a difference. Yeah, and that turned out quite well. It's got the character that I wanted it to have.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a fine example, and certainly, just looking at it, the energy that would need to be put into, just the gun turret there, and getting things right there.
I've got to confess, the gun turret is a kit.
That makes it simpler.
I just assembled it.
Yeah.
And look, you don't want to be proud about that kind of thing because it'll take you a long time to scratch build something like that. It probably still won't be as good as the kit is.
Yeah.
Why not buy it?
So a bit of common sense as to what parts are worthwhile actually investing time in, where you can't get them readily easily, or it's just simpler to go with something that is readily available and you can add to it. Yeah, exactly.
Unless you especially want to make that, why would you bother? It expedites the project, whereas on the other hand, this was something that I couldn't buy.
Yeah.
So there was none of that. There were no shortcuts with that. It was a matter of finding photographs. How does this work? What does it do? Reverse engineer it, and then there you go.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
It's a lovely shade of green. So shall we have a look at the next one, just on this side? Now this is one of two ships that you've said to me are very similar.
This is the second generation of Lady Cutler class ferry. The first were built 1968 and 1970. This is 1979 on the same hull, but with a different format. Twin funnels, different kind of seats, superstructure and so on and so forth. But the hull and the machinery is all much the same.
Right.
And when this was built, she was still in service. She's been retired now. But you were able to travel on it, take photographs. You could record basically every rivet, every nut, every bolt on it. They even let me in the engine room. And so that makes building a model so much easier if you're used to building ships that don't exist anymore, to build something that is still around as you see it and record basically like a snapshot of the moment.
And I like that you've got the images here as well. So yeah, just as a comparison to see, what it looked like then and there. But obviously, you add in, positioning of people and how clean this is as well.
Ferries are about history, they're social history. They're, unlike a lot of ships, they're ships whose history ties into popular culture, to popular history. Everybody travelled on them. So unlike, say, a luxury liner, a great warship, a luxury yacht, what have you, these are ships that everybody relates to.
Yeah.
And that's half the fun of it.
Yeah.
That's certainly something I like about it. It's something that people like about it when they come to the space, because it's something that they recognise, probably something they've travelled on.
I don't know if I've been on that ferry, but I've been on Manly ferry.
Yes.
And I would assume it looks very familiar. So I'd assume it's either a newer generation of the same thing, or maybe because I grew up in Sydney back in the 80s and 90s, so I lived at Balgala, which is near Manly. So,
near Manly?
Yeah. So often ride the pushing down to Manly and catch the ferry, go into the city. Yeah, good fun.
And so there,
got a charm to
something
itself
here that you can relate to. For example.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's a good reason for the topic. All right, so let's the whispering. I think they can still hear you. That's okay.
That's not supposed to be.
We'll take that out, Geoff. All right, so the next one, just looking at this, this is what is this?
RMV Salonian.
Salonian.
So if we have a look at our poster here, these are the Isles of Scilly, off Land's End in the UK, southern England. A popular holiday destination, notably for Harold Wilson in the 1960s. He would travel on this ship for 4 hours to the house that he owned there. It has a lot of the features of a small passenger ship without being that size.
It is gorgeous, isn't it? I mean, what a lovely example. And this would have been fun. A lot of fun to put together. Or was it torture? Or was it both? It's usually both, I guess.
Oh, there's always an element of torture in this hobby, because you have to be focused and things do become tedious. But look, it gives you a chance to reproduce things that you might have being your bonnet for, things like timber seats, timber railings, the features that you see on ocean liners. You might be inspired by models that you saw as a child or ships that you saw as a child. It gives you a chance to work with things like that and to immerse yourself in the subject.
And shall we move to the other side of the table? So this very large example of a ferry was what used to exist. The SS Curl, this one is. I think there was probably more than one.
Oh, that was one of several. It's the only one we've got here today. In fact, the only one that we've built so far. But Curl is one of the northern Sydney suburbs that she's named after. She had a sister ship called the DY. Others, South Spain, Barragula, and so on and so forth.
So what paints and what sort of work goes into something like this? How many man hours do you think roughly you had to spend to get?
I would say hundreds and hundreds, and I've never counted the hours that go into it.
Yeah.
But
you know that it takes months and months.
It's pretty intense, and this one, for example, started with a lot of research before I even started physically building anything. So if you count that in the building time as well, I would say at least 2 years, maybe 3, and go to well, and that's still being pretty proactive in your project with your work. Because something like this takes a bit of focus. It's very easy to sit back at the end of the day and relax. You need a bit of focus and a bit of drive to do something like this.
And I guess you're doing other projects as well whilst this one is going. You wouldn't just be working on one, or is it that it saps all your attention?
Yeah, everyone's different like that. My policy is to do one project at a time and focus on it.
Yeah. So it never gets left behind, I guess.
It never gets left behind because a lot of people do end up with unfinished projects.
A lot of them.
And that's not worth much to you. You can't bring it here and display it. It doesn't mean anything unless you finished it. So I try to keep it at one bit at a time. But having said that, there's always other projects like life that get in the way.
Yeah. But, you know, that's it. Life goes on. But if you can squeeze in those extra hours, and you know, it's about the journey as well. Yeah.
If you want to get that things underneath there.
Oh, yeah.
As though if
I
you
can.
view as though you were a passenger looking up at the ceiling.
Let's see. Well, that's about as far as I can go, unfortunately.
What if I bring it to you?
But only if you're not going to be too fussed. Okay. All right. So, oh wow. Okay. And then, the ceiling. Yes. So we're just getting a look at that. That's lovely, isn't it? Wow. The amount of time that you're going to spend doing that.
That was part of the appeal of it. That's part of what you're trying to reproduce and to record. Some of the ambience of it as well. So not just from a distance, but what it was like to be on board to travel on.
Thank you for showing that. That's awesome. And this is the thing that I've said to a few others. It's not the same, even now we're recording this, but it's not the same seeing it on a video as actually being here and seeing it in person. There's that ineffable quality.
That's the case, because otherwise everyone would be living a life of virtual reality, wouldn't they?
Exactly right.
No one would ever do anything.
But hopefully this attracts people to see these things, because once you hear this event is on, doesn't mean that these will always be available at the event.
Of course not.
It's up to the people that's showing them. Thank you for bringing those in. Now,
that's something that if people don't attend in person, there is still something they miss.
This is the HMAS Paluma
HMAS
Rand Survey Ship. So this is one
Royal Australian Navy.
Right, and I think you said it's you still in progress, work in progress.
Still a work in progress.
Well, obviously, it wasn't all white, but yeah. So how much extra needs to be added to this, or is this now the skeleton? It's now.
I'd say we're about 80% there. But at the moment, it has no motors and propellers, and there are still quite a few finer details to be put on before it's finally painted. The paint being the very last part of it.
That ship's got character, doesn't it? I mean, just look at this example that you've got here.
These are the things that often make the best models. So once again, it's not pretty, but it has enormous character, and there's a lot of stuff that's satisfying for a model that appeals to your creative side, and this is another one that has been a childhood favourite. I've wanted to build for years. I reached out to Steve Batcheldor, who very kindly built the hull for me, and at last we could move forward with this.
So when you say years, is it like a childhood sort of dream to build it, or is it sort of more as you've become familiar with various topics, you just saw this one and thought, yeah, that's great, I really want to...
This is something that was around when I was young, and it was something that I've always liked.
Yes.
It was a type of ship, a humble type of ship that we saw around the place.
And that says a lot to viewers about your passion for bringing this to them. That's absolutely... I mean...
Well, if you can share it, so much the better. Isn't it better if you can share something?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll just go on to these last two that you've got here. Now, just look at this one in the middle here. Now, I think the details are on the other side, so I think we can we'll go around and have a look at the other side. Because I think I realised as I was saying it, we skipped it, but here we go. So it's Waiuna.
Yes. TSMV, twin screw motor vessel, Waiuna. Her job was to go out and greet overseas ships outside Port Phillip heads. They drop a rowboat which would row across to the ship with the pilot on board, who would then guide the ship through the rip and safely into Port Phillip in Melbourne.
Oh, how fantastic. Geez, those boats must have been Well, they're big, aren't they? The boats. I
They
mean,
are.
look
It
at
was
the
a very
scale.
dangerous way of doing it, though. Nowadays, they got smaller ships that go right up next to the ship itself. It's much more efficient, much safer.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. I think you've had a few admirers here, spoken to a few of the other club members, and certainly they love the work that's here.
We come away to be here, so you like to think it's worthwhile.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so Geoff, let's go have a quick look at this last one, and thank you again for your time. This is the sister ship that we were talking about before, isn't it?
This is the half sister to the Lady Heron. This is the Lady McKell from the first series, built by State Dockyard in Newcastle in 1970, and she ran to suburbs like Mossman, Cremorne, from Circular Quay.
And
She also did the harbour cruise. She would go through the Spit Bridge in Middle Harbour over weekends.
I'm sure there are plenty of Sydney-siders that will look at this and say, "Oh, I remember that."
Well, that's what we like. The shape is so familiar.
Yeah,
And to see it in model form, even if you don't see it anymore in one-to-one scale, to see it in model form, well, that's something.
yeah. It reminds you of times past, but fond memories as well. So thank you very much, Geoff.
You're welcome.
And yeah, some good detail there about what's driven you, some of the passion that you've got for this topic, and I don't think the show would be the same without you. So thank you again, and
My pleasure, and I hope people have enjoyed themselves this weekend.
I think so. It's been great. I certainly have learnt a few things, and hopefully we'll see you at the show next year as well.
Will do.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Geoff.
Yeah, where'd you come from in Balgowlah?
So I was living in Balgowlah Heights,
Yes.
and
What street?
God, it's so long ago.